Hey guys, so this is going to be the last build video of this league, or at least it was supposed to be, but the last day Uber Elder just decided to drop some very expensive washer side, and this is my luck in a nutshell. So if you got some pretty expensive build idea, post it in the comments below and I may actually do it. Well, that is of course if I can sell that washer side, because the league is gonna be dead once the flashback starts, which is probably gonna be after I post this video. And a quick reminder, if you don't know, if you participate in the flashback and reach level 35, you get a free mystery box. But enough about that, let's talk about the build. Indigon, mana stacking, low life, Hierophant, using Arctic Breath and Vortex. I did something similar a couple leagues ago before Indigon got nerfed, and I was using Cold Snap, Trickster, and if you're kind of interested into this build, I would highly recommend you to try Cold Snap build instead of this. Couple things may have changed since then, but you could probably still adapt it quite easily. As for this build, well, I wanted to be something different than Trickster Cold Snap, and I wanted to see how Indigon feels after the nerf. I was initially planning on doing Occultist, but the Hierophant seemed like a bit more challenging and a bit more unique idea, I guess. And I don't want to debate which class is better, I just wanted to try Hierophant. But the main reason why Hierophant is that you gain 30% of your maximum mana as extra maximum energy shield. The same node also has the drawback of reducing the mana cost, but we can counter that with other items and jewels. Now, Indigon builds are always kind of a headache. You have to plan everything precisely and equip most of the items all at once. So for me it feels like a big hassle, and this is probably gonna be the last time I do Indigon build. Overall the build performed quite alright, I guess. It was not meant to be very tanky and I only have 8.3k ES, but in fact I cannot fully utilize the Indigon potential. In most cases I'm getting around 1.5 thousand increased spell damage from it. After that the mana cost just becomes too insane, and I don't really have that much mana regen. With everything up, Path of Building says I have 1.7k mana regen per second only. If it wasn't Hierophant, I would focus more on getting mana regen than more flat mana, but since mana for Hierophant is also ES, so I kind of needed that. Now, as for the damage, I actually planned, and in my planning I had more than 2 times more damage, but I end up with only 1 million damage per second against Shaper from Vortex, and then Arctic Breath adds another 600k. As you can see, I'm not using Valrash's Fire. Initially I was using it, but I really didn't like losing ES, and it just felt too scary, I guess. Oh, did I mention the Vortex and Arctic Breath are only on a 5 link? And I am using defensive course instead of offensive, so the damage could be higher, but I just felt more comfortable being a bit more defensive. I guess I don't need to say that it is Uber Elder viable. And I fought Shaper's Guardians multiple times, tier 16 Elder's Guardians, but this is not really a build that I would want to do again, unlike the Cold Snap Indigon that I did in the past. So I guess I would not really recommend this build. It's kind of complicated, it has a lot of conditional buffs and requires precasting. It's not very tanky, the damage is nothing too amazing, and for the same price you could do a normal Vortex build. I did also try using Chaos damage over time spells. All I had to do was reset a couple passive nodes and change the weapon, and of course gems. Mainly I have tried playing with Soulrend, Bane, Essence Drain, while Blight just did not have enough mana cost. Soulrend felt pretty good for map clear, but then again you don't need Indigon for Soulrend to feel good for map clear. And for bossing, Soulrend kind of felt weird. Well, I had to spam it because it only lasts like half a second, but with Indigon I can't really spam it forever, so I would run out of mana and had to use either Lavayanga Spirit or wait a bit, and overall I guess didn't really like using Soulrend with this setup. Cold damage over time just felt much better because it lasts longer, so you ramp up the damage, use the skills, and you are free to move around for a couple of seconds. So after Soulrend I decided to try Essence Drain because it lasts longer, and I didn't really like it either. At that point it felt like trying to overcomplicate what is supposed to be pretty simple by using Indigon, so I don't know, I don't think it's really worth using Indigon with that. So then I reverted back into cold damage over time skills. So I'm gonna talk about items, skills and links now. So for the weapon I decided to use Spine of the First Claimant because it just gives so much cold damage over time multiplier, as well as Caspian and decent amount of elemental, well, cold damage. And since this build is getting so much increased spell damage from the helmet, you want to focus on getting more multipliers. So on the passive skill tree I took almost no damage nodes except for a couple increased elemental damage nodes along the way and couple damage over time multiplier nodes. The big multiplier comes from Pain Attunement, which which gives 30% more spell damage. So obviously I'm using Chevron's Wrapping and reserving almost all of my auras into life. For that I also need Prism Guardian Shield. +2 Corrupted would be ideal, but that's way more expensive. And in the shield I have Malevolence, Discipline and Zealotry. Also I didn't mention I have Vortex cooldown and recovery speed helmet enchantment, which isn't needed, it's just kind of quality of life improvement. I just had Indigon sitting in my stash and kept enchanting it until I got a Vortex enchantment and then decided to do a Vortex build. Next, the gloves Voidbringers Corrupted with +2 duration. And this is my pseudo 5 link setup for Arctic Breath. And this is also like a conditional buff for the Vortex, because Arctic Breath is linked with GMP, Efficacy and Bone Chill. When you chill enemies with the Arctic Breath chilled ground, those enemies take increased cold damage over time, which is actually like a more multiplier. So I mainly use Arctic Breath for clear speed and to buff the Vortex damage. Well, of course its own damage as well. While the Vortex is linked with Control Destruction, Efficacy, Elemental Focus and Arcane Surge high level. And you may ask, but why are you using Arcane Surge if you got Arcane Surge free as a Hierophant? Well, Arcane Blessing node only gives you level 1 Arcane Surge, and Arcane Surge got buffed this league, and it's actually providing more damage to the supported skill and not just providing Arcane Surge buff. So overall it's actually a pretty good multiplier, and also you get more mana regen from higher level Arcane Surge. Now for 6th link, Swift Affliction, or if you don't mind, smaller Vortex use concentrated effect. Next for the amulet I'm using Aziri's Foible because it's very cheap and very efficient, gives a lot of mana regen, and mana is also ES. And this amulet actually gives me almost 1000 mana and over 300 ES. As for the rings, as much mana and mana regen as you can get. Energy Shield and Intelligence are also very nice. And of course you need a ton of resistances on the rings. Now the belt can be either synthesized or shaped belt. On a shaped belt you would want increased mana recovery rate, but you can also get that mod by using fossils. So I was hoping to fossil craft on this belt with the increased mana recovery rate as well, but I got pretty okay-ish belt and didn't really want to invest anymore. Increased energy shield from body armor isn't very desired mod if you are using Chevron's Wrapping, because Chevron's Wrapping doesn't have very high base ES, so it's kind of whatever. And now the boots. I was kind of against using March of the Legion boots, but since I was never really using Val Righteous Fire, I decided to give these a try. Before I equipped these boots I was using Rainbow Stride boots, and with Rainbow Stride boots I could get almost 300 more ES, but other than that they are kind of similar in stats. So I put in Hatred with increased duration inside these boots. And the way this level 25 blessing works is that you basically cast an aura, reserve it for like 0.2 seconds, and then maintain that aura as a buff without reserving mana. In my setup this buff lasts for 22 seconds, and it also counts as mana spent, so you also power up Indigon. But I found out that incrementally spending mana can power up Indigon a bit more rather than using all your mana at once, but it's still pretty nice to use one aura, gain a quick power boost, and also get a buff which gives 19% more cold damage. Obviously compared to Val Righteous Fire it's not as good and it doesn't give as much damage, but it also lasts way longer and you don't need any souls to be able to use it. Now the other gems that I have not mentioned are Frostbomb linked with faster casting and also Flame Dash. Frostbomb applies cold exposure, lowering enemy cold resistance. Remember, for damage over time, penetration does not work, but lowering enemy resistance does increase your damage. Then I also have Stormbrand linked with Curse on Hit and Enfeeble, and I do need some lighting skill because I do have Elemental Equilibrium. It also helps proc Elemental Overload, and previously I was using that with the cast when damage taken, but it was not reliable enough, because if I cannot proc lighting skill then I am losing damage because of Elemental Equilibrium. Oh, and lastly of course I do have Clarity, but I do not have any Watcher's Eye. Before I talk about jewels and passive skill tree, I also need to mention my flask choice. When I gain Arcane Surge, I am immune to all elemental ailments, so I don't need freeze removal, I don't need burn removal, but I do need to get poison removal, bleed removal. Because if you are degenning, you cannot recharge your energy shield, and that's very annoying if you don't have ES leech or high regen or some kind of recovery for your ES. So I have Curse Removal Flask, I have the Sorrow of the Divine to give me Zealot Oath, then I do have Bleed Removal. Lavianga Spirit is when I need to, spam skills more. And of course Quicksilver Flask. Now onto the passive skill tree, and first thing I want to talk are jewels. This build uses 1, 2, 3, 4 healthy mind jewels to convert life into mana. And remember, for Hierophant, mana is also ES. And also kind of more damage because you can power up Indigon better. Then I have 2 Fever mind jewels. Initially I was planning on using just 1, but it just didn't feel right, didn't feel enough. Then I do have Pure Talent, because when I connect to the Witch starting node, I do get 0.5% of my maximum mana regen per second. And when I connect to the Scion, I also get 25 all attributes. And Intelligence give me quite a lot of ES, because Intelligence gives me mana, and mana also gives me ES, and also Intelligence gives me flat ES. So it's like double dipping for ES. And the last jewel I have Tempered Spirit, which gives me 135 mana when placed in here. But in my case it actually gives me around 800 mana. And I also wanted to travel to that node because node above Soul Thief also gives me spell damage leech as energy shield. And while for damage over time builds it's not very efficient, but it does give some ES leech. And of course it does give maximum ES as well. Now some people may have noticed that I have Mind Over Matter and get confused, but why? You are using ES, so you're not benefiting from Mind Over Matter. Just ignore Mind Over Matter. There are very good mana nodes behind it. And you want mana, right? And they are along the way. So just take it and don't question why Mind Over Matter. Then of course Elemental Overload, Elemental Equilibrium, Pain Attunement, Arcane Vision, because when you're low life and you don't have Arcane Vision and you go into the cave or some kind of indoor maps, everything becomes dark and you can't really see enemies unless they are very close to you. Oh, I also got these cast speed nodes because I wanted a bit more cast speed, and also they give some mana regen. So that's all. Like I said at the beginning of this video, if you got some interesting build ideas that may be too expensive to normally try it out, leave your ideas in the comments below. So for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you, I guess, a couple days after Flashback.